Video games have come a long way from having to prove themselves as a worthy medium, especially now that we've got decades of proof showing just how great they can be. If that was ever a statement that needed backup, then this list of undeniably fantastic gaming experiences should do the trick. Especially since I reckon there's no way you're going to be able to make it through this one without letting me know at least one of these that you loved and one you think definitely deserves to be on the list that I missed out on. These aren't the 10 best games of all time, but they're absolutely games you should play. And once we factor in that comment section with your honorable mentions, I think we could come up with a pretty definitive list. All of my entries here span different decades and genres, but they're all absolute bangers, so let's get into it. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 masterpiece video games you can't deny. Number 10. Heroes of Might and Magic 3. If you've caught a Jess video before, then you might know that if there is a way of putting Heroes of Might and Magic 3 on a WhatCulture list, I will absolutely do it. And if you knew nothing about me, that's pretty much all you need to know. This turn-based strategy masterpiece from 1999 ate my childhood, and that of plenty of other people. Perhaps the most wild thing about it is that it's still fantastic to play over 20 years later. Heroes of Might and Magic 3 is a high fantasy heaven with a number of unique town types to play as, spanning from your typical knights to the undead necropolis and tower town that lets you build nagas and genies. From creature types to its sprawling campaigns, scenario maps, and character building mechanics, this game is so delightfully deep, you can't help but think they just don't make turn-based strategy games like they used to. Developer New World Computing folded in 2002 alongside its parent company 3DO, and the rights to Might and Magic were then sold to Ubisoft. The results after that point were a little hit and miss, but the legacy of this series and its impact on strategy gaming as a whole can't be denied. Number 9. Outer Wilds. If you can put Outer Wilds down for anything, it's the unfortunate timing of launching in a very similar release window to The Outer Worlds. So for a while there, a lot of gamers had complicated conversations where you weren't sure which one they were talking about. Luckily, they're both great games, but only one of them knocks it out of the park, and I'd argue it's Outer Wilds. Not dissimilarly to Heroes 3, Outer Wilds will find its audience in a particular niche. These aren't games for everybody, and that's just fine because what they do accomplish in their respective niche and genre is nothing short of outstanding. Traveling from 1999 all the way up to 2019, Outer Wilds is a unique gem of a game created by just 6 people. It's a funny little thing at first glance, an odd-looking world filled with strange creatures and an obtuse mission to travel to other planets in a mechanically tricky spaceship while managing the fact that you're stuck in a time loop. All that said, Outer Wilds is a game where you get out what you put in, and there's so much magic to get out here. The puzzles are stunningly clever, and the worlds are all manner of unique, challenging, terrifying, and awe-inspiring. Perhaps most importantly, Outer Wilds is one of those rare games that not only respects your skill, it respects your intelligence and ability to use your own agency to explore and learn. Number 8. Chrono Trigger. It might be the oldest game on this list with a release date in 1995, but Chrono Trigger is the definition of timeless. Fans will argue that Chrono Trigger is the best JRPG ever made, if not the best RPG in general, and it has an absolutely phenomenal soundtrack. That's especially impressive given the composer was actually a sound programmer prior to creating the music for this game. Chrono Trigger is one of those rare games that feels like it does everything right. From its story to its characters, battle mechanics, and world building, everything just works together seamlessly. The game also holds up impressively well because of the timelessness of all those elements. It's clearly the product of a collection of wildly talented developers doing what they do best, and the results speak for themselves. The glorious open world, time-traveling mechanic, multiple endings, and introduction of the New Game Plus feature were nothing short of revolutionary at the time and remain super impressive today. Number 7. Bioshock. As I was preparing this list and Bioshock was already on it, I saw that the official 2K Games account sent out a tweet that just said the word Bioshock. Now, for almost any other game, this would just be cocky and weird, but Bioshock is the tweet. That's all you have to say. This game is just that good. Bioshock was one of those games that came out right when the weird "are games really art" conversation was at its peak, and it's a large part of why we put that one to bed. Bioshock's world-building, lore, and characters are just about without parallel. There's something so enchanting and terrifying about the City of Rapture. It's easily one of the best locations ever realized in a video game. On the same level, the creepiness of the splicers, big daddies, and little sisters, the twisting narrative, and clever combat mechanics ensured Bioshock not only left an impact in the year it came out, but on the industry as a whole. The series would go on to interesting places in later installments, but the way the original Bioshock rocked the industry in 2007 was an event that hasn't really been replicated by the series itself or by many other games in the medium as a whole. Spending time in Rapture is an unforgettable experience, and Bioshock's incredible twist will absolutely go down in video game history. Number 6, Rollercoaster Tycoon 2. Now for something completely different. I did warn you this list was going to be all over the place. In 2002, Chris Sawyer created Rollercoaster Tycoon 2. The construction and management sim seems basic on the surface, but it's deceptively challenging, completely engrossing, and impressively, it absolutely holds up 20 years later. Also, somebody mentioned this on Reddit, so it's not my original thought, but tell me you can't perfectly remember the sound of that kid laughing, no matter how long ago you played this game. The sights and sounds of this game are fixed in the memories of anybody who played it for good reason. It's the product of one guy just making the game he wanted to make with no pile of publishers pushing him one way or the other, and the result is pretty much perfect. Whether you're playing against the geographical constraints and financial tactics of a particularly tough level, or just building roller coasters and dropping your park visitors in the water, this game is pure, unadulterated joy. This is another great example of a game that just feels so pure and classic that it makes me want to say they just don't make video games like they used to, but I think I need to stop saying that because my millennial is showing. Number 5, Subnautica. Jumping over to a game that actually came out within the last decade, Subnautica might seem like a sleeper hit to those who haven't had the pleasure, but if you've played it, then you know it well and truly earns a place on this list. For the uninitiated, Subnautica is an open-world survival action adventure. Your spaceship is crash-landed on an alien planet, and from there, it's you versus the elements and the less-than-friendly inhabitants. Largely, this involves you being underwater and underwater exploration, so if you have a phobia of that kind of stuff, you might want to skip this one, but you'd really be missing out. There's a lot of deep gameplay mechanics to explore here, alongside satisfying progression tools, and the combo of the gorgeous underwater environments alongside the fear of the unknown works wonders to keep you gripped and enthralled throughout. There's so many secrets to be found, a fascinating story to unravel, and emergent gameplay experiences to be had. The stunning soundtrack certainly doesn't hurt either. In short, this is just a game that demands to be played so you can see it for yourself. Number 4, Shadow of the Colossus. If we're talking about games that inspire awe in every second of their moment-to-moment gameplay, you'd be hard-pressed not to put Shadow of the Colossus on your list. Team Ico's 2005 action-adventure puts you in the shoes of Wanda, and there are only 16 enemies in the entire game. Of course, they're enormous, powerful, and uniquely designed mythical creatures who don't go down easy, so this is a case of quality over quantity. Bioshock might have been the final nail in the coffin of the dumb games can't be art debate, but Shadow of the Colossus, which came out 2 years earlier with its haunting story and beautiful visuals, certainly kicked in the conversation. From its soundtrack to its overall presentation, clever mechanics, and extraordinary enemy design, Shadow of the Colossus is a truly special addition to the gaming landscape. The story is one of the best ever told in video games, and wandering around the game world is a duly humbling and thrilling experience. The reveal of each new colossi and learning how to take them on is also satisfying every single time. The 2012 remake is also equally flawless, so if you haven't played this one yet for some reason, make sure you go play that version. Number 3, The Secret of Monkey Island. The heyday of point-and-click adventure games may be somewhat behind us now, but the love gamers still have for classic titles like The Secret of Monkey Island certainly suggests that a resurgence could be in the works. I mean, it is in the works. Ron Gilbert has already announced that Return to Monkey Island is coming out this year. But right now, let's talk about the 1990 classic. The Easter eggs, the characters, it's camp, it's charming, it's challenging. The Secret of Monkey Island has everything going for it. Everyone has a different favorite classic adventure game, and games like Day of the Tentacle and Grim Fandango could easily make this list too. But The Secret of Monkey Island is all kinds of special. The music is iconic, it's infinitely quotable, the story is engrossing, and its puzzles have gone down in history. If it's not already evident, I just don't have a bad thing to say about this game. It's actually the first game I remember playing, which is is not at all a bad place to start. Number 2, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Choosing the best Legend of Zelda game is up there with choosing the best Mario game. Everyone's gonna have a different take, and a good handful of titles from both franchises could find themselves on this list. We've gone with a classic and given this slot to 1998 smash hit Ocarina of Time, a game that set up an adventure so epic it's synonymous with the idea of the hero's journey. To put it plainly, Link's debut in 3D on the N64 for the very first time was nothing short of remarkable. From the story's humble beginnings to its darker implications and twists, fascinating plot points, world design, unique dungeons, and curious characters, every element of Ocarina of Time works together seamlessly. Like so many other games on this list, the music is absolutely iconic and the game world is truly transportative. Playing this game about a kid who comes up against all kinds of crazy odds and continues to best them, especially if you played this one while you yourself were a kid, is bound to have left an impact. Number 1, Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. RPGs are a tough category to top, largely because there are so many masterpieces in the genre excelling at every single facet of their games. I'm talking about your best Final Fantasy games, Persona 5, Mass Effect, and Elder Scrolls games. While those are all indisputably fantastic too, I have to give this one to the game I always call the greatest RPG of all time, and that's Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. Taking on Star Wars with all its lore, rabid fanbase, and expectations is a tricky undertaking in the video game world, and not everyone can get it right. If someone was going to absolutely nail it though, we shouldn't be surprised that it's BioWare. The 2003 RPG was developed by BioWare, Obsidian, and Aspyr, and it's simply stunning. Its characters are memorable even decades later, and it tells a story that's yet to be bested by nearly any other piece of art across video games or any other medium. The progression to a lightsaber-wielding, force-using hero is so satisfying, and unfolding the narrative as you travel between unique planets and learn about your complex companions is just wonderful. Even if KOTOR isn't your personal favorite RPG, the acclaim it received from critics and fans alike absolutely can't be denied. In short, it's a masterpiece. That's the end of our list, but do let me know down in that comment section what games would make your list of undeniable masterpieces. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm at Jess McDonald, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more great gaming lists.